Hello and welcome to this episode of Inside the Piranha Club with me, Rebecca Clancy, and birthday boy.
Yeah, and birthday boy, yeah.
Still giddy.
46 now. Still what?
Still giddy.
Yeah, still giddy, yeah. Yeah, it's a giddy weekend.
I don't know if he's giddy from the birthday or the super clipping, but also I'm Markman Bryant.
Our super runner who has just returned from a weekend in Sweden running, each to their own. Anyway, we are going to look back on what was a thrilling weekend of racing in China, won by the brilliant Kimi Antonelli, 19 years old for Mercedes, taking his first victory in Formula One in just his second season. Teammate George Russell was second, and Lewis Hamilton has returned to the podium to finish third, his first proper podium for Ferrari since he joined in what is his second season with a Scuderia. We have so much to unpick, but I do want to start with Kimi Antonelli because it was a brilliant weekend from him. I know a lot of people are going to say that he got pole position on Saturday because his teammate George Russell had an electrical issue, which meant he could only do one lap. But Kimi Antonelli took advantage of that. He secured pole. He held him off at the start. Okay, George Russell got caught up fighting with the Ferraris, which did also help Antonelli. But he got himself in the right position. He held his nerve, absolutely dealt with the pressure, and I thought it was a brilliant win for him. Ben, what do you reckon?
Yeah, very good. Handled the pressure. I think after, some disappointment earlier in his career, his F1 career, I think that this is his season to step out of the shadows and really, potentially make a championship fight of it with George Russell. When he was doing the intro, I was thinking 19, and obviously me being really old now, what was I doing at 19? Not winning Formula One races for starters, but quite incredible really, isn't it? I mean, he's so young. Second youngest winner, isn't he, after Max? But phenomenal achievement, really pleased for him. I think above all, the fact that he's an Italian is great for Formula One. To have an Italian winner again, and I think just that emotion and the personality that he brings as well, it was really lovely to see, and I think it was quite an emotional podium with those three on there, and Bono as well. And I'm a little bit of a romantic sometimes, and I think it was really quite nice for Formula One to enjoy that moment. And that's my thoughts on it.
I bet Rebecca hated it.
No, I loved it. I know I'm a bit... I thought it was a real full circle moment. Obviously, Pete Boddington was Hamilton's race engineer the whole time he was at Mercedes. He's now a race engineer for Kimi Antonelli. And when you looked at it, even Hamilton was delighted for Antonelli and for Bono. And Bono, as you will imagine, got absolutely drenched on the podium with the champagne. And no, I loved it. I'm a big softie for this sort of stuff. Just, if you time it right.
So long as he doesn't get engaged, he'll be fine. I mean, the moment that he gets engaged, then Rebecca will have a go at him for it. But
no, only if he does it. If he does it in the off season, it's fine.
Okay, great. No,
I'd just like to point out. I'm now 1-0 up in terms of predictions, aren't I?
Yeah, you do. You are.
Wow.
You did predict this. Although, let's be honest, you did also predict Kimi Antonelli winning for Australia. So you just kind of decided to stick with it until it became true.
This is true. But we said, didn't we? We spoke about him a little bit on the last pod and his relationship with George this year, which is going to be interesting. But he did the job, didn't he? You can only out-qualify your teammate, and it doesn't really matter. I know George has those issues, but he's still got to go and put in the lap he did to get pole. Then in the race, he kept his head on his shoulders once Lewis got past. And then once those behind were squabbling, just drove away, really, didn't he? I know he had that little lock-up towards the end, which I think his heart would have been in his mouth at that stage. But also, I don't know if that's just like a lack of maturity or anything. I think if you look at a lot of the drivers at that stage, those tyres were so old. Charles Leclerc was struggling a lot, wasn't he? That I think we can kind of forgive him that moment. And I think my highlight of the whole weekend was him, the little look on his face when he was introduced as Kimi Räikkönen onto the podium, might live in infamy in Formula One.
Fantastic.
Oh dear. In all seriousness though, Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, came out afterwards and basically flat out said that George Russell is still the one that they're behind for the championship, which I do understand. But this is a long old season. We've had the confirmation that Saudi and Bahrain are cancelled, so there will be 22 races instead of 24. Obviously, that does clip the wings of Mercedes slightly earlier than they would like, because we know there's a regulation change coming, which will affect them more than anyone else. After 7 races, now 5 races. But do you honestly think, Ben, that Kimi Antonelli can last the whole season and take the fight to George Russell?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not based on last year's performance. He had that wobble, didn't he, with the European races, and seemed to do well on the flyaway. So based on that evidence, I would suggest that that isn't an option at the moment. I hope that he proves me wrong, but I think that at the moment the favourite remains Nasty George, as you called him last week.
Naughty George. There's nothing
Naughty
nasty
George,
about
sorry.
him.
Damn it. Yeah, Naughty George. I was thinking about the way that he's portrayed as nasty on Netflix and mischievous, which is what led to the nickname we've kindly given him.
I do think as well, though, Rebecca, just quickly on what you said there about can he take the charge to him. We saw, I know we're going to come on to McLaren in particular, but we've seen that these cars aren't, they're not reliable. So all he needs is George to have 2 or 3 more races like last weekend. And then the pendulum swings slightly, doesn't it? If he gets a bit more luck in terms of reliability, in terms of electrical stuff, power unit things, if he was to, say, win the next 2 or 3, then surely Toto has to say, do you know what, actually, this guy is in a fight for the championship. I get that Russell's number 1, but I suppose they're so far out in front at the moment that you can afford, if you like, to lose one car race because the other one's almost guaranteed to win. And if that's Antonelli, then Antonelli puts himself right in the frame, doesn't he?
It's just protecting him, isn't he, from the questions and level of expectation. That's all he's doing.
Okay, let's move on to Ferrari because it was a great weekend for them. And let's be honest, it's not often we actually get to say that. I think in particular, Lewis Hamilton was the happiest of those 2 drivers, finishing 3rd. Charles Leclerc was 4th. Has Lewis Hamilton got his mojo back, Ben?
I don't think he lost it, did he? I think he was frustrated all those years at Mercedes where the car wasn't good enough. I think there's no secret that era of ground effect didn't play to his strengths. He hated that, which is why he's so relieved at the moment to go back to this new generation of Formula One car. So I don't think he ever lost it. I just think that there was obviously problems with that car and the philosophy, and he certainly looks reinvigorated. I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that he's in the championship fight, even though he's not in a Mercedes car. I think that Ferrari is proving to be very quick at the start. I just think they just need to eke out a little bit more performance from it. Maybe the regulation changeback that you mentioned will reel in Mercedes' advantage, but I do think that both him and Charles Leclerc are in the hunt for the title. So that's great for Ferrari. It's great for Formula One.
And I thought it was brilliant as well to see Hamilton and Leclerc go wheel-to-wheel racing. I mean, their battle was absolutely epic through this race. And I love that Ferrari just stepped back and let them do it. There were no team orders. There were no instruction came over the radio to say, actually, you guys need to be a bit careful. And I think for me, there seems to be a confidence, don't you think, MMB and Ferrari now with this new car, that they're both drivers, they were extremely critical, openly critical last year of the car. And actually, it feels like there's a really big weight has been lifted at Ferrari and everyone's starting to enjoy their job again.
Amazing, wasn't it, as well, when Charles Leclerc came on the radio and said that was really good fun. He had ultimately lost that battle, if you like, to Lewis and was dropping off a little bit. But they both enjoyed it. Again, I think it's a matter of circumstance. They knew the Mercedes had got away once George was clear. They knew they were so far clear of Ollie Behrman and the rest of the pack behind them that they, without touching each other, could lose a bit of time and enjoy. Lewis said they had a little kiss, didn't they? But you could enjoy racing each other knowing that if you're losing a bit of time, there's not going to be someone on your gearbox straight afterwards. But I thought it was great. Lewis's racecraft was there for all to see. Ben, you said he's not lost it, and he clearly hasn't. Some of his overtakes were natural, if you like. They weren't helped by buttons and these gizmos and things. And I thought it was an outstanding weekend for him in particular, in front of a crowd that loves him. Like, he's so well loved in China that was nice to see. And yeah, just seeing his smile and he's got that love back, it feels, for F1, doesn't it?
Buttons and gizmos.
He's not that much younger than you, Ben. He's only 41. They're still tiny to be a racing driver yet. Look, you mentioned McLaren, and let's talk about McLaren because I think it's safe to say that the championship honeymoon is over. Oscar Piastri has not started either Grand Prix now, neither the Australian nor the Chinese. He has watched them from the same vantage point as the rest of us mere mortals. Lando Norris also not happy at all. What is going on at McLaren, Ben?
Yeah, 80 points behind now. Mercedes in the championship, huge amount after only 2 races. I'm not really sure what's going on because I mentioned before that I was convinced that they were confident with the car design that they had and that everything was looking really sweet. There was a sort of not a swagger, but there was certainly a big confidence in the team when we went to MTC at the start of the year for the press conferences. So to come into these first two races and perform as they have done is a little bit of a concern, because is it the engine? Is it the car design? What's actually causing these problems? Obviously, mechanical failure you'd expect to be an engine issue, which is a Mercedes product. Doesn't seem to be any problem on their car. And I know that there was a little bit of accusation of maybe they're not providing the customer teams with the full information and the spec of what they've got. But I don't know. It's a puzzling one, and I think that I mentioned this on the podcast last time about Piastri and sort of bouncing back from adversity. Now, we've had two races that he's not started, so it's not really his fault. I mean, the Australian one you could say was, but this one
you
in
did.
China
You 100% blamed him in Australia.
Yeah, I did. So, look, I don't know how he bounces back from this. You know, two races of 22 now. 20 to go. It's a big haul of points to try and catch up, and it's a shame. But if you read my book, good plug, McLaren's history, enjoy that, is always about sort of triumph after adversity, but obviously it's adversity after triumph as well, and the team historically drops off after winning the championship, and I don't know what it is. Is it just the circle of evolution in Formula One? Is it now Mercedes' time to come back to the top? But I'm really surprised just how McLaren have performed in those first two races. I just expected so much better, and you're
going to need to write a new chapter.
Yeah, possibly will, but I didn't expect them to do so badly, but they're certainly going to be sort of facing more questions. But then it starts up, doesn't it? The driver market. Will the drivers be happy in that team? Underperforming? Probably not. They've both had a taste of winning championships. One is a world champion. Does this all start all this silly season rumours about who goes where? And, I think that it's going to be quite a uncomfortable few months for McLaren.
Well, will Max Verstappen be ruining that he didn't go to Mercedes this year like had been suspected? And also, I think there might be questions for you as well, Ben, because let's be honest, you wrote a book about McLaren, and look where they are now. And the other book you wrote was about Red Bull. And let's move on to Red Bull, shall we? Because I think it's safe to say that...
I also wrote a book about Lando Norris, and that didn't do too bad.
Yeah, well, I think he might disagree with you, given he also didn't start the Chinese Grand Prix. So there you go. The curse of Ben Hunt has struck yet again. Max Verstappen, let's talk about Red Bull, because my goodness me, aren't they in a bad place at the moment? Max Verstappen's criticism of the new regulations is getting louder. Still, the Mario Kart continues. That's his favourite analogy, it would appear. Toto Wolff has come out, and clearly not now trying to sign him, but has come out and said that it's only because the horror show of Red Bull that Verstappen is complaining. Verstappen didn't finish in China. It was an issue with the battery. He carried on with anybody who held a microphone up to him, basically saying it's terrible, it's not fun at all, it's playing Mario Kart, this is not racing. He said, for me, it's just a joke. MMB, what happens now with Red Bull? Because, as we mentioned, we go to Japan in 2 weeks, and then we have what is now being dubbed the April break, because Bahrain and Saudi are cancelled. It feels a little bit like Red Bull just need to get through Japan and then go back to the drawing board, doesn't it? Because they can't really have Verstappen, and certainly F1 doesn't want Verstappen coming out and having all of these negative comments about the new regulations.
Yes, it doesn't help the sport or the team, really, does it? I think it's almost one of those things, isn't it, where he got a laugh the first time he said Mario Kart, so now he's very much sticking with that line, even though it is now, it's a little bit boring now, isn't it? We get it, Max, you're not enjoying it, but you're not enjoying it. I completely agree with Toto Wolff in the sense that he's not enjoying it because of where he is. I think if he was at the front and, running away with races, would you be complaining? No one would complain, would they? Let's be honest. I think it's troubling for Red Bull. Ben, you spoke last week about Honda and Aston Martin on all these press conferences and how it's not quite good for the brand and for the business. And it's a similar situation here, isn't it? You're sending out the four-time world champion, your greatest ever driver, your biggest asset, and all he's doing every week is either slamming the sport that he races in or the team that he's driving for. That doesn't help.
No, last year, not a good look, is it? Exactly.
Last year in Suzuka, when we were there, he pulled one out the bag, didn't he? He hadn't had the best start to the year, and then he went to Suzuka and was absolutely masterful. It was a Max Verstappen of old, That's not going to happen this year, is it? Let's be honest. When he was fighting with Alpines, who I think it's worth a mention for. I just don't think it is. I don't think you can make that leap in the space of 2 weeks to how far they are off of Mercedes and Ferrari. And let's be honest, McLaren, if they can get their act together and start a race, are quicker than the Red Bulls as well. We've got other teams further down the field that we would normally be further down the field. Like I say, Alpine outqualified them and had a good race, double points for them. Isaac Hadjar had a difficult race, didn't he? So, yeah, I think there's a lot of issues there that will need resolving. Maybe they can use that April break to do it, as you said. But I think one thing that Laurent Mekies needs to get hold of is his driver and almost say, look, we like that you have character. We like you go out and say what you think. But at some point, let's internalise that and actually use it for good rather than for these sound bites we keep seeing all over the place.
I don't know if I fully agree with you, I have to say. Verstappen was off the boil at the start of last year, and we obviously saw that management change with Mekies, the team principal, now coming in to replace Horner, and Verstappen only lost out on the championship by 2 points. So I don't know, with Max Verstappen, I just think anything is possible.
But that car is a lot worse than the car he was driving last year. The car he was driving last year was pretty much designed for him, wasn't it? Whereas this one, I think they've got a lot of problems with that car at the moment. They've got a new engine, and I know the power unit's done quite well so far. That's, reliability issues expected when you've designed your first ever power unit. And yeah, I just think other teams have got the run on. He might improve and might score points. It's Max Verstappen at the end of the day. He's a genius. But I think the gap at the moment is just far too big even for him to bridge to be considering winning Grand Prix at this time.
Ben, I want to talk about this row, and because it's not just Max Verstappen who's saying negative things about these new regulations. Fernando Alonso at Aston Martin has come out and described it as the Battery World Championship. Do you think this is helpful? Because we spoke a couple of pods ago about how you just need to give this a bit of time. Is it a bit throwing your toys out of the pram because you're not doing as well as you should be? Do you think that these drivers who get paid an extortionate sum of money just need to drive the car, and the issues that they have, they should be dealing with behind closed doors? Or do you think it's fair game?
Yeah, there's positives and negatives, aren't there, with this Battery World Championship? So I think it's it's no coincidence the drivers that are at the back of the grid are complaining, saying they're hating it, and the ones at the front are loving it. So, I think that it's inevitable that you've got this scenario. I think the interesting thing now is just who keeps on the longest in terms of the noise. The whole conversation is to try and influence a change in regulations. So those teams and drivers at the back will keep complaining and, hopeful that F1 or FIA will make changes to the rules. I don't see them doing that, especially if the racing's good. I think ultimately that's what it was all about, the good racing product. We've got a different product, but is the racing good? And I think that's kind of where we need to assess where Formula One is. Is it a good product that we've been given this year? Plenty of overtaking manoeuvres. Is there excitement to the finish? Have we got different winners? That is the bigger picture that Formula One needs to look at, not really the people just complaining at the back just because they're not winning races anymore. So I think we've got to, I said this in the last pod, but I think we've got to wait a little while, give this regulation run a bit of a test. We've obviously got the gap now, so it's a little bit inconvenient, but we need to have 6 or 7 races before we can really say, this is great, this isn't, and let's refine the rule book. At the moment, though, I'm quite satisfied with what I'm seeing.
Okay, let's talk about the gap that you mentioned. And MMB, I want to talk to you about this because Saudi and Bahrain, we know, pay the most amount to host races. It's about $100 million that it's going to hit F1. That's on the bottom line. That goes to the teams as well. All the money is shared out. I mean, how significant is this gap financially going to be to F1 and to the teams?
Huge, basically. I think it's worth pointing out everyone was unanimous that this was the right decision. I don't think there was ever any chance they were going to go racing in Bahrain and Saudi, given what's happening at the moment. Yeah, it's a decision that also comes with all of those negatives as well, if you like. And yeah, financially, not just for Formula One, but for those circuits themselves, which will have, insurance and things like that to make sure they're covered. It's huge. There's partners that would have been activating out there. You look at Aston Martin, 2 of their biggest backers, Aramco and Marden, are based in Saudi. That would have been a great chance for them to activate. Fans are missing out. Teams are missing out. It is the whole party is missing out on that money. It is not ideal, to not be able to slot other races in. But again, it's too quick, it's too soon. There's not further room in the calendar later in the year. I think at the moment also it's worth just casting an eye forward. Like we're looking forward to November, December, but we don't know how long what's happening over there is going to last, how long that region's going to be unsettled. And there's Qatar and Abu Dhabi, you know, I'm sure, as you know, conversations will have taken place. What happens then? You know, they maybe do have time to look, and maybe there's already provisions in place. Because, like I say, we don't know what's happening. Geopolitics is a strange beast, isn't it? So it could be all settled down in a couple of weeks, or we could still be talking about this in a year's time. So those things will be taken into consideration as well. But yeah, you're right. It is massive for Formula One, and those financial losses that you mentioned are just proof that how much thought they'd have taken into these decisions to not race in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia.
That's really interesting, isn't it? The season finale in Vegas, which is a race that Formula One owns. I mean, that's a prospect, isn't it? Having not paid for the privilege, but
of course, it's a long way off, like I say, but it's a very real possibility, isn't it? It has to be said.
It's a long way off, but these decisions need to be made with plenty of time because the cars, the freight, everything gets shipped over to these places. So it is, yes, like you say, a long way off, but actually decisions need to be made. And I'm absolutely certain conversations will be happening. Right. As our long-suffering listeners may know, Ben Hunt likes a bit of a moan. He is a grumpy old man, and now, since having his birthday over the Chinese Grand Prix weekend, and he is 46, we thought we would introduce a new segment to this podcast.
What a positive one, right?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. Let's not change now, Ben. It is Ben's 1 minute moan, and he can moan about whatever he wants. And so we are going to put 60 seconds on the clock. Are you ready for this, Ben?
Yeah, have you got a timer there, have you?
I'm going to time you. Don't you worry about it. And I might just let you rant depending on how good it is. Right, ready? 3, 2, 1, moan away.
All right. Okay, so my moan at the moment is F1 commentary. Now, I have never done commentary before, and I have no wish to do so. And I can imagine it's quite a tricky thing to do and whatnot. But I have to say, I am getting incredibly fed up with what I'm listening to at home. Megajoules, clipping, harvesting, all these nonsense words. I need to be done with all this. I think that we just focus now on the racing. I think that most people now know the regulations. They don't need it thrust down their throat every single lap. We need to just get on, embrace the product that we've got, and just accept racing for what it is. And, it's an overtaking manoeuvre. It still counts. It's still for position. Let's not overly complicate things. I think that we're still in this world of trying to walk our audience through. And yes,
there's your minute.
Is that it? Oh, God, I've got to keep going.
Okay, go on. I'll let you run for a bit longer.
Ben's 5 minute moan.
I just think that we need to ditch that and then just focus on the actual exciting parts, and rather than trying to make it a technical, baffling session for really turning people off. And the other aspect I was going to say is that we need to swap the commentary teams, because it seems that everyone that watches Sky wants the F1 TV commentary team, and everyone that watches the F1 TV offering wants Sky. So that's what I'm deducing from my sleuthing on X. Everyone seems to want to swap around.
Ben, would you appreciate this? I watched some Champions League football last week on TNT Sports. Other providers are available, but they offer a red button service where you can just listen to the crowd. Would you watch a Grand Prix with no commentary?
I would absolutely love that. Yeah,
we do when we're in the media centre.
I was going to say, and that is what we do in the media centre. There's no commentary, and it allows you to form your own opinions. And because it's very easy to be shaped and put in a direction when you're watching at home and you're listening to other people put their opinions on you. So yeah, I would definitely take that.
Well, I think we have a lot of new fans to the sport who are very welcome, and I think for them commentary is a good thing. For me, you know what I'm going to say, as someone who sits in the commentary box for 5 Live, particularly on Fridays, I've done a fair amount of commentary now. It is very difficult. You have to think on your feet. I'm absolutely exhausted by the time I come off doing live broadcast, and I do not use those words. And I think the 5 Live team do a very good job, I have to say, not just because I work with them, but they don't overcomplicate it. It is very difficult, but I do agree with you. I think let's start moving on from this. Let's move to a positive, because there is a huge positive for Haas. And when we did our team by team, Haas, we predicted, would be front of the midfield, which is a great place for them. And it has come to roost so far. Granted, it's only been 2 race weekends. Ollie Behrman currently sits 5th in the Drivers' Championships, ahead of world champion Lando Norris. B, you love a bit of Haas, don't you? We all love a bit of Haas. They're a lovely team. Lovely press team as well, which always helps. And they do a great barbecue in Austin. They are having a great start to their season, exactly what they needed. They are living up to all of the hype. And quite frankly, as the original American team, I'm going to say, because I know Cadillac like to say they're the only American team. I'm never sure why that doesn't get corrected. But Haas are actually an American team as well. It's great for them, isn't it?
It's huge, isn't it? And what a great start to the year they've had, you know. Behrman in particular, but Ocon we saw tangling as well with his old adversary, Gasly, in both Grand Prix so far. That's been fun. But yeah, let's shine a light on Ollie Behrman, who, first of all, I think is starting to show his charisma and his character out of the car a lot more. You know, in the media pen now, he's enjoying himself and he seems to be at one with the sport that he's in. And he's someone who's not criticising the rules because, like Ben said earlier on, he's up there. He got the most out of that car that he could have done on Sunday. 5th place will be the target for anyone that isn't driving a Mercedes or Ferrari at the moment. So if you like, he won the second race. And for Haas, that's amazing. You know, this is the team with the smallest budget in F1. Over on Sector, in our preview week, we spoke to Ai Komatsu, and he spoke about those challenges, and they're a very open team about talking about the challenges of having less money and not even reaching that cost cap ceiling. Yet, despite that, they've built a car that, in my opinion, not only looks great, but clearly is good to drive for Ollie Behrman as well. And lest we forget, he is a Ferrari driver. And yes, Lewis is enjoying himself at the moment, but as Ben knows, when you get into your 40s, everything slows down a bit. So there will be a time when Lewis steps away. And if it's end of this year, if it's the end of next year, and Ollie Behrman's still doing what he's doing, then, you know, it almost seems a natural fit for him to slot into that Ferrari seat. But yeah, for Haas, this is great. They're front of a midfield battle that I have to say as well, I think the new rules have really helped midfield fights. There's not just these DRS trains every race. You know, we get overtaking in the midfield and there's fun and games there as well. But he was clear of most of that, wasn't he? Other than that little challenge he had getting past Colapinto, who I also thought did a good job. He looked head and shoulders above some of those other midfield drivers. And he has done for some time. You know, he finished 4th last year. That's his best finish so far. But he's almost gone into it in a really good way, hasn't he? Like, we saw Antonelli last year and he really struggled with Mercedes, whereas being a bit further back in a team that isn't expected to challenge for wins and things like that, I think really helped him last year. But he consistently gets the best out of the car beneath him, and I think that, you know, long may that continue for him and for Haas and for good old British bias.
Did you know Ollie Behrman failed his driving test first time?
So did I. Best always do, Ben.
Really?
Yeah.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I failed mine first time.
You tell us.
Yeah, I failed it within about 5 minutes when I nearly ploughed through a group of students outside Loughborough University. So we kind of just
Mine wasn't that bad. Crikey. No, I was, it wasn't even my fault. He just, you know, they got
Like
you passed yours first time, didn't you, Ben?
I did 3 minors.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, 3 minors. One was the excessive use of the brake.
I thought you were going to say excessive use of language.
It's given that we work in a sport which has got some of the best drivers in the entire world in it, there's some pretty ropey driving that goes on between those people in the media centre. And we can't mention that M&B crashed the car in Miami last year. Anyway, it was very Mario Kart in Miami last year, wasn't it? It was very. I mean, driving on an American highway is ropey at the best of times, but with all of us in the car, M&B crashed. Yes. Anyway, we were all fine. It was only a little one, and thankfully we were going at low speeds. But anyway, yeah, let's move on, because I want to know about this break. Who are the winners and losers from it, Ben?
Losers, Formula One and the teams ultimately, fans in the Middle East, and those that have obviously bought their flights and tickets. I think that this shouldn't be underestimated, certainly for the Bahrain race, where lots of people from all over the world jet in now to go to that race because it's affordable. The hotels are fairly reasonable and the tickets are fairly reasonable as well. So I feel for all those people. They're the losers. The winners, I would say, are McLaren to iron out their problems. I would say Aston Martin massively. They need to get on top of all their issues. Another disappointing weekend for them. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think that, the drivers will welcome a little bit of a break. I think journalists maybe will already, because it has been a bit of a frantic winter. So, plenty of winners, plenty of losers. I think that, it's going to feel like a long time, I think, those two races disappearing. It's almost like, it's just like the summer break, isn't it? It's just the same amount of period of time. But I do think that we could see quite an advancement in some of those struggling teams. I think Williams as well, another one to need to lose weight from their car. MMB, you've got something on this.
Yeah, I think, and it's a question really for you guys. Do we suddenly go, we're 2 races light of the calendar, we want the racing, we want the cars to be improved. Do we open it up and have a couple of tests?
No.
You don't have to talk about them or go to them. I just thought it might be nice to, but no, let's slam the door on that. I just wondered if that might be a way of saying, look, but I suppose it's, if these teams can improve privately, they don't want to go and trundle around a racetrack breaking down with people watching them over a hill at them, do we? So?
But it's also about those teams that have done a good job with the new regulations, and I don't think the likes of Haas, Alpine, Mercedes and McLaren should all be punished just because, we've now got this gap in the season which allows other teams to catch up. So I think that, leave it as it is. I'm sure there'll be plenty of work, plenty of simulator days and all sorts of stuff going on. So, I do think that we will see a big transformation in certainly the reliability and performance of these cars.
Right. We do actually have another race before we get to the break. We have Japan, as I say, coming up in 2 weeks. But, right, lads, any gossip over the weekend from the Chinese Grand Prix? What have you been hearing?
Ben heard that there weren't any hot dogs this year, so I think he was gutted he wasn't there.
That is true. A little bit of tetchiness with regards to Laurent Mekies ducking out of his media session. Had to catch the flight home. First time that he's really had to face the music after a disappointing weekend and chose to not to do so. It could have been a schedule clash, but of course it does leave journalists a little bit unhappy when that sort of stuff happens. So that's slightly disappointing.
Not the first team principal to do that, we should say. It's not as uncommon as you might expect that someone has to catch a flight and our media session gets cancelled.
Yeah, and also there's always a bit of a rush home, isn't there, after a double header or a triple header. And team principals like to get out of town pretty sharpish. But no real controversy, I don't think.
MMB, did you hear anything? Any good gossip?
Well, I'm just going to plug one of my articles, if that's okay, because Ben's shilling his bucket every chance he gets. So I think F1 Academy is worth a shout. New season for them. Also affected, of course, by the cancellation in Saudi, which is a shame for those guys because they have even fewer races, of course. Maybe it's easier to slot them into somewhere else further down the year. Let's hope that is possible. But we saw like the big deal with Sephora, which again is massive for F1 Academy, but also now ties Sephora into F1. And I think that's interesting that F1 has always supported F1 Academy, obviously financially and with the teams and things like that. But I think it is now F1 Academy is starting to open a door to brands coming into F1 that wouldn't have naturally seen a fit otherwise. So I think, it is starting to, and I don't want to say payback it's due or anything like that, because it essentially is a sport that's been created, a series that's been created to promote women drivers. But if that is an upshoot of it, then it can only be a further strengthen its position, if you like, within that F1 ecosystem. So yeah, it was good to see that back, and it was good racing again, wasn't it?
Well, while we're plugging, I basically wrote that article for the FTA a couple of weeks ago while we're plugging our work. There you go. Sephora replacing Charlotte Tilbury. Okay, as I said, we still have another race to go before the April break. We have Japan coming up thick and fast in 2 weeks' time, and we will, of course, be back to preview that. And we also have a special series coming for Miami. We will tell you more about that in the coming weeks, so do keep an eye out for that. It will be completely separate from our race previews and reviews. We're all going to do some extra work, and take a look at a particular subject. Oh, MMB says no. Okay, good to know. Right, but until then, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please do rate and review us. Please do contact us on our socials at Inside the Piranha Club. But until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.